My name is Eddie Nieuwendijk, and I'm presently sitting here in Holland in front of the computer trying to actually get you familiar with the PRINCE2 project methodology. I hope that everybody can read me loud and clear, and I will this session explain about the philosophy on the PRINCE2 methodology, and I will drag you to the most important topics of the PRINCE2 methodology and what it means in the different levels of certification. If you would have any questions during this webinar, you can use the question box and just put your question in it, and depending on if it's a subject that I'm going through at the moment or a subject that will be picked up later on, I will instantly answer your question, or at the end of the session I will take some time to answer your questions that are showing in the question box. So I hope you are all well and receiving, and that technology doesn't bring us back 10 years, and that you can all read me loud and clear. So let us start. PRINCE2 as a project methodology. As you can see on the screen, PRINCE2 is an acronym for Projects in Controlled Environment. And actually it says everything where this whole methodology is about. It is trying to control a project environment. Now, it's very important to understand that the intellectual property of the methodology itself belongs to a party which is called Axelos. And Axelos owns it since 2009, and actually they are subject to the development of all best practices, which Prince is just one of them, and they are starting to do so January 1st this year. So that means that it's actually really young, and it is in development as best practices should be. Prince. Projects in controlled environment. It existed during the 1980s as a methodology which was designed for IT projects. It was owned by the Office of Government Commerce, and they just developed it as a tool for IT projects. During the 90s, the Office of Government Commerce decided that the methodology in itself should be not only related to IT environments, but should be more generic in its form. And so they actually redesigned the methodology, and since 1996 it got the extension of 2, hence PRINCE2. PRINCE2 is the same base, but now it was more for all sorts of project environments. So it's not only IT, it can be subject, and as we can see today, in construction, we can use it for communication, we can use it for all sorts of projects and all sorts of scales of projects. PRINCE2 belongs to the best practices, and that means that once in a while you should look at your own methodology and see if it needs to be updated. Maybe some of the things that are mentioned in the methodology needs reflection. Sometimes we need to adjust things. Maybe they're just not practical for using PRINCE2 in the field. So that means that once in a while PRINCE2 is updated. And the last time that it was updated in 2009, and that is still the version that we have in the field right now. Maybe we will have an update in the next few years, who knows, but for now we will stick to the methodology as written in the book Managing Successful Projects with PRINCE2, 2009. So, if we talk about best practices and we talk about PRINCE2 as a best practice, so what actually is the added value of using a best practice in project environments? Well, I just wrote some of the benefits that PRINCE2 as a methodology in itself can bring to project environments. As said, it's based on best practice, so it is actually used in the field, and we got feedback from the project managers that are using the methodology, and then based on that input, we do reflection on the methodology, so it's constantly updated. and I have to say that version 2009 is a very user-friendly version, and it's really complete. But again, it needs to be updated once in a while. You can use it for any type of project. I mean, not any type of technical project. No, it also has to do with sizes. Project management has many layers, and some of the project managers are working in project environments that are completely organized on themselves. Others are working as technical project managers and deliver products as part of a total deliverable in a project. All the layers in a project environment will look at their work as project management. And PRINCE2 can be adapted and can be used in all types and all sizes of project management and projects in itself. It is widely recognized, and that is one of the really benefits of PRINCE2. Once we embedded the methodology in an organization, or even in a temporary organization, which a project is, then we will all use the same terminologies. We will use the same process. We will go through the same steps, and we all know where we are and what the next step will be. We will use the same templates. We will use the same form of communication on information. And that actually is really, really important, specifically if your projects are not just in your own local environment, but you need interaction with external suppliers or even international parties. One of the big giant advantages of this methodology is that we have a common approach on the project and a common terminology. PRINCE2 emphasize on the project responsibility. It actually is the only methodology available right now that defines every role within a project environment based on the tasks and responsibilities. If we use PRINCE2 to define the responsibilities on the different roles in the project environment, there should not be any misunderstanding about who's responsible for what. Another really specific benefit is that PRINCE2 is product focused, and specifically the quality of the products that need to be delivered. The philosophy behind it is that we first, after we identified a problem or a need in an organization, we do a feasibility on what is the best solution. And once we chose a solution which we think is best for the problem or the need, then we will organize a project, and then we will work towards the solution. Now, the solution can only be good enough if it complies to the quality that is necessary to solve the problem or fulfill the need. So instead of thinking in activities and durations and that things need to be done in a certain period of time, PRINCE2 says, no, we first need to define the total output of the project, then think about what are the main parts of that output, and then define on quality level that output. With that, we are focusing on quality. PRINCE2 recognizes that a project does not have one plan. Plans are there to have a benchmark on progress. So that means that we should have different levels of plans. And PRINCE2 recognizes plans that are just for the project board, so they can assess progress of the project towards that plan. But it's different than the need of a project manager. A project manager in a PRINCE2 environment is facilitated by stage. So he really needs to focus on the stage plan. He needs to plan that so he can manage it. When we talk about the delivery of specialist products, then PRINCE2 recognizes that teams, specialist teams, might have the need for their own plans. And of course, plans are things we hope will happen in the future. And we all know that nobody can actually predict the future. So it might be necessary, and I'm sure you all recognize that most likely it will be necessary, to adjust the different plans. Once an approved plan, a baseline plan, needs to be adjusted, PRINCE2 says, well, you are an exception of the original plan. You need to adjust that. So PRINCE2 recognizes a level that is replaced as an exception plan. PRINCE2 has a specific idea on the management and the attitude of the management during projects. It actually says that there are different ways of managing environments. You can manage an environment by objective and by constantly sitting on top of the results, try to identify the next step and involve the board, the project manager, and sometimes even specialists to have meetings where we assess the progress and follow the next steps. Now, that's a lot of time-consuming activity. So PRINCE2 says, well, if you would just agree work with different environments, like say the board agrees with the project manager on a stage, the project manager will plan that stage and he will request some, let's say, room to work with. We are referring to that as tolerances. Tolerances in time, tolerances in budget, tolerances in quality, tolerances in risks. With the acknowledging that teams and individuals need room to perform, and by setting up the tolerance lines in which the teams or the project manager can move around, the board only needs to act when the plan cannot be delivered within the agreed tolerances. That principle is called management by exception. It's a very strong tool specifically for board members because we make use, effective use, of the available time of the senior managers. PRINCE2 is business case driven. It actually says that PRINCE2 should not only focus on doing projects the right way, but it should focus on doing the right projects. Well, that means that there should be a justification for the investment and the effort that you're going to do. That justification for the investment and the effort that everybody's going to do in the project management team should be written somewhere so that it can be used in the decisions made by the project board, either to proceed or implement a change or to assess if the risks are mitigated enough. PRINCE2 is business case driven, and it actually says that the business case expresses why we do this project. And as soon as we see that the reason why we do the project is not valid anymore, we should consider not proceeding with the project. PRINCE2 is really tight on communication. As you all know, project managers communicate 80 to 90% of their work. And so if we talk about formal communication, we talk about reports, and the reports and actually all the communication tools that PRINCE2 has are really a strong element of the whole methodology. We have 26 different templates, baseline records and reports, in which we will control and we will report the progress to the different levels. PRINCE2 recognizes that every project has its stakeholders. And the stakeholders, let's say individuals or groups or environments that can have influence on the objectives of a project or think they are going to be influenced by it, should be part or should be represented in the decisions during a project. Having that said, PRINCE2 recognizes that the three main stakeholders, which are users, business and suppliers, should all be represented in the board. And next to that, we should really map our environment to see where the different force fields are. Consistency of project work. We need to have a constant flow of work that is going to be done and products that need to be delivered. So PRINCE2, the process model, gives us guidance in how we can do that. PRINCE2 recognizes that diagnostic tools could be. PRINCE2 can be used, like, let's say, like the stages can be used for moments of reflection to see where we are, opposite of where we thought we would be, and if we continue like this, what it would mean for the total project environment. PRINCE2 also recognizes ATOs and ACOs. ATOs, Accredited Training Organizations, and Accredited Consultant Organization. PRINCE2 and the intellectual property of PRINCE2 tells us that not everybody can just teach PRINCE2. You need to stick to the rules. You need to be assessed. You need to be accredited. So materials, trainers, and also organizations like KnowledgeHut needs to be accredited as a training organization in order to be able to teach PRINCE2. The same ATOs and the same ACOs can also be consulted once a project needs that. They are there to help you and to give you guidance anywhere along the time that your project really needs it. So having that said, having that really nice story told to you, PRINCE2 is really nice, but there are some things PRINCE2 is not. PRINCE2 does not say anything about specialist aspects. Let's say it's not for just IT projects, although many environments in the world might think that. No, it's not. It's designed as a generic project methodology. It does not say anything about detailed techniques. So if we say that PRINCE2 encourages us to show the progress of the project in general, it does not prescribe how we do that. If we say that we need financial administration, it does not prescribe how you should do that. PRINCE2 tells us that things need to be done and stays away from the how it should be done. Having that said, it's not about leadership capabilities. Leadership capabilities and even detailed techniques for project managers are written in other methodologies. The other methodologies like PMI, Project Management Institute, which works from a project management body of knowledge, or the IPMA, the International Project Management Association, which has its own framework that tells you the detailed techniques and gives you answer on how to do things. Prince are some other things, but many things not. It's not a planning tool, it's not just software, it's not descriptive, not bureaucratic, and most of all, it's not a guarantee for success. Keep that in mind. It just gives us guidance. It helps us. It gives a straight line where you can put the skin of your project over it, and then you can just walk the lines and use what is necessary to control your product environment. PRINCE2 knows 3 levels of certification. The first one is the PRINCE2 Foundation. The PRINCE2 Foundation is an entry level. You get acquainted with the philosophy on the methodology, you get acquainted with the terminology, you get to know the process model and the roles and responsibilities, and it's basically knowledge-based. It will take about 2 days, usually, and maybe half a day or a day exam prep, and then you can do a foundation exam, which is a 1-hour multiple choice exam that you can do where you need to make 75 multiple choice questions, and 5 of those questions are trial questions, and you need 50% score to pass that. But then you just know the terminologies, the philosophy. If you really would like to use PRINCE2, you need to take a next step, which is called the PRINCE2 Practitioner. We will go in much deeper into the methodology, and actually during the practitioner you will use PRINCE2 in an artificial project environment. We will give you a scenario, and we will just not talk about a business case, you will actually make a business case. We will go through the different steps in order of a natural project and work with you towards a exam, which is the practitioner exam, which is a complex multiple choice exam. It will take 2.5 hours, and you need to answer 80 questions. The third level is the PRINCE2 Professional. The PRINCE2 Professional level is an assessment level. It is for the PRINCE2 practitioners that would like to be assessed in an artificial project environment by independent external assessors to see their abilities to apply PRINCE2, and next to PRINCE2 show that they have the necessary project management skills. The PRINCE2 professional level takes 3 days, and at the end you need to score a certain amount of points in order to get the certificate of PRINCE2 Professional. Now let's just look at the PRINCE2 methodology and the total scope of it. As you can see on the screen in front of you, there are actually 4 elements where the whole scope of PRINCE2 exists of. And if you look at, let's say that we call this a cake, and you will look at the lower layer of the cake, you can see the PRINCE2 principles. The PRINCE2 principles are there since 2009, and they define those elements that a project environment needs to comply to in order to call themselves a PRINCE2 environment. As you can see, on top of that layer, you have the PRINCE2 themes. And the themes represent, let's say, areas of attention points. We have 7 themes like business case, organization, quality plans, risk, change and progress. And each of those themes will have a certain impact on the project throughout the whole life cycle of the project. They're not static themes, no, they will constantly need to pay attention to. Now the principles and the themes will take place during the PRINCE2 processes. And there are 7 processes on PRINCE2, and later on I will show you what the processes are. Now the principles, the themes and the processes will take place in a project environment. And actually you should make choices based on the complexity and the kind of project that you're into. You cannot just use PRINCE2 one-on-one in every project environment. You will break the rules with that, because one of the PRINCE2 principles is that you need to tailor the methodology to the project environment. Now let's go into that a little deeper. Here I have an overview of the main principles of PRINCE2. Just keep in mind, these principles were always there. They're not made up, they're just defined. Any methodology on project management will refer to these principles. Maybe not as principles, but as very important elements. Now let's just go through them in overview, because they are really base for the PRINCE2 environments. The continued business justification. I spoke with you about that PRINCE2 is business case driven. And that business case is the document, it's a management document, and it expresses the background reasons and what we try to achieve and how many time and with what budget and why we are doing that, the benefits we're trying to gain, if there are any disbenefits, the risks involved, all sorts of things. But that should not be a static document. Every good idea when we start a project on needs to be benchmarked during the project life cycle to see if it's still a good idea based on the experience that we have in the previous time. The business case should be used dynamically in a project. At least at every stage that you cross, at the end of each management stage, we should look at the business case and to see if it's still viable. Dynamic use of a business case is a principle of PRINCE2. Now the next one, learning from experience, it might sound obvious because we tend to think that we always learn from experience, but you would be surprised how many project environments are not learning from their previous experiences or previous projects. PRINCE2 encourages us to not only learn during our project, but also communicate our experiences within the same organization, so we can take that in consideration in future similar project initiatives. I always tend to say, if you do what you did, you get what you got. If you do not learn from your experiences, you will actually make the same mistakes over and over again. Defined roles and responsibilities, something I already expressed. PRINCE2 is the only methodology that defines all roles in a project management team on a level of tasks and responsibilities. Now, we are talking about roles, so it means that we do not talk about individuals. We do not talk because people can have or carry more than one role in a project environment. So that is a really essential element, and for that there is also a specific theme. PRINCE2 should be managed by stages. Base for that remark, base for this principle, is that you first need to think before you do. And so PRINCE2 states that there are at least 2 necessary stages in a PRINCE2 project. How small it is and how large it is. 2 stages. The first stage is the initiation stage. You will work out and plan in detail a PID, a project initiation documentation. And then you can start delivering. And when you deliver a project, you can do that in one delivery stage, and depending on the complexity or the need, as stated by your executive, you need to do that in different stages. Management by exception. I already said something about that, but it's also a principle. So management by objective should not be used in a PRINCE2 context. Focus on products. We are focusing on products, specifically their quality, and tailored to suit the project environment. You need to make choices. You need to go through the whole process, but you shouldn't stop on every activity in the process. You should use what supports your project. You should also sometimes need to make choices in your themes. I mean, how heavy is a theme necessary to apply in a certain environment? So tailoring to suit the project environment is a very essential chapter in PRINCE2 methodology. On foundation level, it's just mentioned, but on practitioner level, we will go into it deeper, specifically if the relationship between the project or the customer and the suppliers is on a commercial relation based. Now let's go to an overview of the different themes. Yeah, here they come. The business case theme. Now the theme, of course, is about the document, but the theme also mentions the development path of that product. Where does it start? Where is the first version of a business case coming into a project? And then what happens with it? Who's responsible for it? When are we updating it again? And what if the benefits in our organization are not just realized after the project, but we also do an incremental development. So we are also creating benefits during the project. So how do we deal with that? The theme business case gives answers to all those questions. But most of all, the theme business case answers the question why we are doing this project. Now the theme organization acknowledges that all the necessary roles from project board, project management, and the delivery, the team manager or the specialist environment. The whole organization is not a static element as well. During the different stages of a project, the project manager should actually look at the structure of its project management team, specifically the individuals assigned to the different tasks. If you are in a design stage, you need completely different individuals than if you are in a testing stage. So organization is dynamic as well. The theme quality defines actually the path towards quality. It recognizes that quality needs to be planned, quality needs to be controlled, and quality needs to be assured. So the whole theme is about, okay, now who's telling me what we need to deliver at the end of the project? Who's responsible for that? And then what is the project going to do with that information? And so if we completely defined the products that needs to be delivered by the project, then we can think on how can we control it on quality level. So that most likely is about inspections and testing. So PRINCE2 is going towards the complete path of quality in the theme quality and acknowledges that some environments needs quality assurance, which is not a role from a project management team, but a role from the customer organization. And that will actively audit the project environment to see if the project environment complies to corporate standards. The theme plans expresses the different levels in plans. Like the project plan. The project plan is produced for the project board so they can assess progress based on the project plan. So if having that said, it's a choice by the project manager how many details they put into that plan, because if you really go into detail on the project plan level, you are inviting your board to actually manage on detail everything that happens in the project. That's not what we really like. We would like the board to act on the main parts. So, having that said, a project plan is a high-level plan. It doesn't contain too much detail. Now, the next level is a stage plan. That is produced for a project manager. That, of course, has more details. It has more details because now we have team managers, we have parts of the final output, we have product descriptions, we have a lot of things that we need to plan. Even testing and inspections need to be planned as part of the stage. But the most detailed plan in a PRINCE2 environment is called the team plan. And the team plan is produced by the teams or the team manager that is actually delivering the different products. So yeah, they should make a plan for the delivery. So it's an activity-based plan, most likely. And if you have to adjust your plan, the theme plan tells you that you can do that by requesting an exception plan. And the whole theme of risk is really nice. Another best practice is management of risk. Management of risk is used as a methodology for identifying, assessing, and controlling risks in organizations, specifically in the processes. PRINCE2 adopted that best practice, adjusted it a little bit so it was suitable for use in project environments. And having that said, PRINCE2 looks at risks as uncertainties, possible future events that, if it would occur, will have an effect on objectives of the project itself. Now, that's very interesting because effect on objective means negative or positive. So in the theme risk, we just look at every eventuality that can happen in the future and we assess it on if it's a positive effect or a negative effect. And why we do that? Well, not all positive effects are wishful. Being early in the delivery of your project's product is not always a good idea. Spending less money than budgeted for the project is not always something that we desire. So, having that said, the risk theme tells us how to deal with uncertainty during our project. Everybody that worked in project knows that change is a very specific theme in project in general. Why? Because the dynamics of the project, it justifies the fact that we are starting a project if we do not know the development path or maybe not even the output. Or maybe we know the output but we just don't know the development path. So that means that during the progress of a project we get new information. We get new visions on what we really need. And so sometimes we need to adjust things that we thought were good or great ideas. But if we do not control that element on changes, it will be a mess. Project managers will constantly be dealing with changes on changes on changes. So we need to set some procedure on the theme change. PRINCE2 worked that completely out, and it makes change a friend of a project because we think that changes should result in a better product so that is best suitable to solve the need or to solve the problem of an organization. The last theme that PRINCE2 recommends, or describes, is progress. And it just actually tells us things on measuring where we are opposite of where we thought we would be from planning. What this would mean if we just extrapolate it to the end of the project. If we continue like this, what will it mean? Will we be on time or will we be late with delivery? Will we spend more budget or less budget? What is going on? And how are we going to deal with unpermissible deviations on our planned path? So what can we use to control progress? Working in stages, granting tolerances, using different reports, all as a subject to progress. So now we've talked about 7 principles and we've talked about 7 themes, and well, it's a little predictable, but yeah, we have 7 processes as well. Now on the slide in front of you, you can see actually 7 processes, and you can see then that they are divided on 4 different levels. And the top level, as you can see, is corporate and program management. Then you have underneath that a level which is called direction or directing. And then you have a level which is called management, and the lowest level is called delivery. And as you can see, the 7 processes of PRINCE2 will take place with involvement of the different levels in our project management organization. The 7 processes are starting up a project, initiating a project, directing a project, managing a stage boundary, controlling a stage, managing product delivery, and closing a project. Now let me explain a little bit about the processes in general. The PRINCE2 projects are triggered by a project mandate, and that mandate, as you can see on the figure, comes from corporate and program management. It triggers the process of starting up a project, and the whole purpose of starting up a project is just to ensure that the prerequisites for initiation are there. It actually says you need to get into conversation with your customer. Hopefully you get an executive who represents the customer environment, or the business if you want to, and he or she should express what the project is really about. During starting up a project, we are trying to build a bridge between what was said and what they actually meant. And everything we do during starting up a project is focused on the initiation of a project. The output of the starting up a project process is a project brief, and well, it's not really PRINCE2, it's project management in general. You should not only approach the board with what you did, but you should also show the board what you are going to do. So in that context, the output of starting up the project brief is what you did. But you should make a plan for the next period in the project, which is the initiation process. So the output of starting up a project, project brief, and the initiation stage plan. With that, you are actually approaching your project board and you are requesting permission to initiate the project. And that triggers the next process, directing a project. And directing a project is a process that expresses the activity that are responsibilities of the board members. All decisions in a project are done by the project board. Once the board approves the project brief and the initiation stage plan, they will authorize the initiation of the project. And then basically the project really starts. So starting up a project is pre-project and the real project starts when we have authority for initiation. And then during that initiation, we are just trying to work out all the information that we gathered during starting up. We look at specific elements like how are we going to deal with risks, so how are we going to achieve quality, how are we going to deal with changes and the configuration of the output of the products, and how are we going to deal with communication. So the project plan is subject to it, and of course a business case completely refined based on the output of the planning process is subject to it. All the information from starting up and initiation together forms our PID, a project initiation documentation, and the output of initiation, the PID, forms basically the contract between the project manager as a supplier and the project board as customer. It should be agreed, it should be signed, and it can only be agreed, it needs to be agreed before we can proceed with actually delivering the project in itself. Keep in mind what I just said, you should not only show what you did, but you should show what you do. The thing is that during projects, all stage plans are produced in the following process, managing a stage boundary. So we need managing stage boundary to get from initiation to delivery. And that actually just means homework for the project manager. He needs to plan the next stage. He needs to evaluate the previous stage. And he needs to ensure that the project plan is still valid. And if he needs to adjust that, then he should also think on adjusting the business case. So, the next stage plan, the evaluation of the previous stage, refined project plan and a refined business case should provide the board with enough information to assess if it's still viable, desirable and achievable to proceed the investment. In other words, to agree with the next stage. Once a stage plan is approved by the board, the project manager should concentrate on controlling that period of time. Only when the stage plan is approved, the project manager can authorize the work to the different teams for the delivery. And once the teams are actually working on the delivery of the different products, the project manager needs to control that progress. He needs to assess it. He is constantly focusing on getting the stage plan delivered within the tolerances that he agreed with his board. He will inform the board about that progress, and he will actually act on every related issue and risk coming in during the stage. Now, either he has a mandate to fix things, but if what happens is beyond his control, he needs to approach the board. He is an exception. He should report the board that the plan cannot be achieved within the agreed tolerances. So he seeks advice and guidance by its board, and then he triggers another activity in directing a project. The specialists have their own process on the delivery level, and that process is called managing product delivery. And managing product delivery actually is the activities from specialist environments, and they work package based. They agree a work package with a project manager, and once they have the authority for the delivery of that, they will work on their own activity plan. They will work on their team plan. They will inform the project manager on progress of those work packages, and once they completed the work as agreed in the work package, they will deliver a completed work package to the project manager. And the project manager can just assess it and do a sign-off on their work, and so that's an iterative element in PRINCE2 project environments. PRINCE2 does not describe how specialists should perform. So basically the managing product delivery exists of three activities: accepting a work package, executing a work package, and deliver a completed work package. Managing stage boundary, controlling a stage, and managing product delivery are iterative depending on the amount of stages. But finally, at the end of a project, we need to approach the closing of that project. And Prince2 has a specific process on that. And that process tells us that we need confirmation of acceptance of the output by the users. We need to confirm that there is an environment capable of maintaining and supporting what the project delivers. We need to evaluate, we need to communicate, we need to update all our project management documents so we can have provide the board with information on what to expect after the project is closed. So basically I'm referring to the benefits that most likely will be realized after the project, and so the project needs to provide that information on what benefits, on what moment should be available for the board for measuring, and who's best suitable and what is the best way for measuring. All elements that are subject to the process of closing a project. So 7 processes. I'm just telling you them in highlights, but I'm sure you got that already. Now, very essential for the success of the methodology is that Prince2 needs to be tailored to suit the project environment. Now, how can we do that? Prince2 recommends that organizations should reflect on what kind of scales of projects they have and what the need of information or communication is for each scale of initiatives. If you only work in tasks, so you have dedicated teams and they are just doing this, implementing the same solution in different customer environments, and you would use Prince2 for that, you would have different choices than that you would have every time a complete new sort of project and you are stepping into new adventures. You would have a more need for controlling that specific project environment. And Prince2 makes a difference between embedding the methodology in organizations, opposite of tailoring the methodology so it will suit the different project initiatives in that same organization. I personally believe that successful project organizations first think about what is our need and what can we use from the Prince2 methodology. And then next to that, they would, for each initiative in that environment, see, okay, now based on this project scale and complexity, how can we adapt the methodology to this specific project. So this is just an overview of the Prince2 methodology and where it is about. The Prince2 methodology actually is really workable for all project environments. Even for the not so experienced project manager, it's really a handy tool. You can do a lot with that. The Prince2 Foundation gives you the knowledge. The Prince2 Practitioner tells you how to apply it. And with the Prince2 Professional level, you can show that you are actually capable of using Prince2 in projects. All right. Thank you. I will wait to see if there are any questions, and then I will use the remaining time to answer most of the questions. Now, let me see. I can see a question of Mohammed. What are the criteria or rules suggested by Prince2 for deciding how many stages should be kept for large projects? Well, actually, Prince2 does not say anything about that. Prince2 just emphasizes on the need to control projects. You can have very large stages in projects just because people just need to perform, and there is no need to involve the board by assessing where the project is and where the project will be headed for. In really large stages, of course, Prince2 recommends moments of measuring. So it is not defining that the complexity or the scale of a project defines how many stages. Of course, there are different industries that have their own idea on how to do that. If you have an IT environment, you will most likely design, build, test and implement. And in other environments, specific technical environments, you can have those stages described as well. But just remember that not every stage or every, let's say, measuring point needs the involvement of a project board. I hope I answered that question for you. Now I can see another one from you. Is it okay to start the next stage if one of the output of the current stage is not yet completed as per stage plan? Well, basically, we encourage, of course, to finish what was agreed. But we do recognize that not everything, not every product can be forced to be delivered in a stage. Because if we would do that, we would use a different methodology, which is called waterfall. And then we would say that everything needs to be finished before we can proceed with the next stage. PRINCE2 only guides us that and tells us or recommends us that it is essential that you have a result and you need to have a plan when you inform the board or ask the board to give you do a commitment for a new period of time. If you didn't finish your designs, there's no sense of involving the board and ask for the funding for building. So I would reflect to the stages as logical moment of reflection. I hope I explained that to you in a proper way. Now I have another one, and it says means time tolerance for stage is complete. Does that say anything with the previous question? Let me see. Let me say basic. Let me give you something. We are planning a stage in time and we are planning a stage in budget. As an example. Huh? Now, when we do not finish this stage within the agreed time tolerances, the moment a project manager detects that or sees that, that is the moment to involve the board, in other words, to escalate. So any deviation from the stage tolerances should invite the project manager to instantly involve the board in the decision to what to do with that deviation. I have another one. If a project manager leaves the project in the middle of the project, then project manager should come from project board or from team manager level. Now, let me express to you not only the PRINCE2 methodology, but in general, but specifically in PRINCE2, there are two roles in a project management team that cannot be combined or delegated, and that is the one of an executive and that is the one of a project manager. We should make a separation in the level that makes the decisions and the level that is managing an environment. So no, a board member should not be a project manager. I'm saying that pretty firm, and I would like you to take that and make sure that if you see that a board member is going to act as a project manager, there is really something going on which is not wishful and will not be productive for your project. Now, if you implement a PMI in our organization, is it enough? I'm not familiar with CCMI or CMMI. I am familiar with the PMI methodology. Well, let me express that. The PMI methodology has, of course, also a lot of processes as well. I think that the PMI methodology is very complete, and specifically in international orientated project environments. It just not only takes you to the different processes, but it also mentions the different techniques that a project manager should apply in general. There are some things that I personally miss in the PMI methodology. For instance, the whole description of tasks and responsibilities on things. But I truly believe that a combination, let's say taking from the best of both worlds, is a very good option. Not every scale of project justifies the complete PMI methodology. So you need to make choices as well. So I'm not saying, I think they're complementary to each other, PMI and PRINCE2. They're not competitors because they're about two different things. All right. Well, thank you, Mohammed, for the questions. They were very interesting. And I hope that I have informed most of you. If there are no other questions, then I would like to thank you for joining this session, and I hope you found it interesting and informative. And if there is anything else that I can do for you after this session, don't hesitate. Send a mail to KnowledgeHut, and they will find me, and I will contact you and answer your question or any other support that you require. So thank you very much, and maybe see you in the next course of KnowledgeHut.